This episode of the Higher Level Podcast is brought to you by ItGel. ItGel are a CBD company who provide 100% organic and vegan products. If you pop over to their website, itgelcbd.co.uk, pop in the promo code HIGHER10 and get 10% off your first order. Graeme, first of all, mate, welcome to the show. We appreciate you coming on. It's look forward to chatting to you. So obviously we got you on here because we wanted to speak to you obviously about EFC and how things have been going over the last, year and a half now or so. So yeah. I just wanted to get a bit of insight in how things are going in terms of running a promotion during all this, because we've heard a lot about gyms, fighters, but it'd be great to get your perspective on it.
Well, there hasn't been anything going on. So, I mean, essentially, I listened to an interview Cairo did a while back on this exact, the resurgence of ESC and coming back 2.0 and what we were doing. And one of the things I felt he missed, and for me, which is quite important, is, during COVID, we had to really shut our shop. We had a lot of athletes that wanted to compete. No one knew what was going on. I mean, I'm sure you guys felt the same way. And it was weird for me because looking 3 years prior, we'd had so many, uppercuts to our business. We had a deal with Queste that fell apart. We had a $24 million offer to buy our business that fell apart. We had all these things. I mean, you might say, oh, well, $24 million, you guys must have been. What you do to buffer up your business to look beautiful when somebody's offering you lots of money is you're all or nothing. You're all in. You're spending money. You're making this thing look great. And none of that came to fruition. We had one setback after the other. And we took a very big strategic, I almost think it's like, what's his name from Shoe Dogs? It's like he fumbled his way through business decisions. And that's why I feel that we did this, which was let's take EFC and put it on every terrestrial network across Africa, because that's our baby. Africa's where we belong. That's the product we produce. We've tried to play in Europe and those types of places, but unless you're going to go there with lots of athletes and make big noise and really put cards together that are going to kind of disrupt the paradigm, it's nice to kind of put your product out there, but you got to focus in on Africa. And where I'm going with this is, fortunately, we signed a whole lot of deals in 2019 with terrestrial networks. And for people who don't know what terrestrial network means, it's like your local channel. So your broadcaster in Scotland, I don't know if it's BT, whoever it is, BT or whoever in the UK, some of them would say, okay, well, that's our BBC is the national broadcaster in the UK. It'd be the same as us signing with BBC, but in Nigeria, Congo, Angola. And that's 1.3 billion people that are watching EFC over 2020 when all you can do is watch TV. So even though we weren't, front of house running shows and promoting fights, our product was just being screened everywhere. And we didn't really see that until the numbers started to mount up. And I was sitting there scratching my head going, wow, this is incredible. But in 2020, we were supposed to monetize that business model. We were supposed to go, okay, awesome. Sponsors jump on board. Look at our views, 200 million people. We're the most watched sport in Africa. What's most watched sports property, because soccer is still the most watched sport. Yep. We're the most watched sports property in Africa, which is huge. Let's monetize that. And with COVID, fell completely flat because sports sponsorship died. People were like, I'm not going to put money into sport. There's nothing happening. Except for UFC.
I mean,
played into us beneficially later, which is now.
Yeah, and the other thing, just when you mention the terrestrial TV thing, because it's, James, you'll know yourself how big that is for a promotion, because we've spoken about it here, obviously, with Cage Warriors and stuff like that, if they could go on to like a BBC, but that's a massive step, just when you say that for the promotion. And do you feel the long-term benefits are going to come back in when everything's opened back up now and people can actually get to shows?
Yeah, so it's funny, our revenue model actually suits COVID. Nothing suits COVID because it's a horrible time for all of us. Physically, we've all lost people. It's been horrific. But in terms of how to run a sports promotion, I believe that it suits COVID because you're essentially not able to have a fan base come to an event. And in sports in Africa, this is a unique concept, but it's true. Sports aren't heavily received here from a fan base perspective. Once we put our product on TV, millions are watching at home. We got the viewership numbers there. In the stadiums, that started to slow down. And we were looking at the big players, rugby, soccer, going, what are they doing? They were living the same sort of situation. In fact, we were quite surprised that we maintained and have maintained such a huge fan base for so long. But it hasn't been our main driving force. We had to move away from that as our big revenue stream. We're a production company. And the only way we're going to be a production company and not an events company is by creating a beautiful product. And we managed to do that. And that then set us in what I believe the same space as the UFCs, the 1FCs, the PFLs. Because, if you put a little bit of a different commentary, a different accent on the commentary, you wouldn't know what you're watching. You're watching a UFC all of a sudden. And that's the reality. And we really kind of hunkered down on that as our revenue model.
Yeah, and the other thing, just when you're talking about the promotion there, James, I'd love to bring you on in this because we've spoken in the past about EFC. Actually, quite a lot in this show we've spoke about EFC. And James, obviously, you've spoke about the promotion as well. But I wanted to get your thoughts on what Graeme's here in terms of how they run their shows and how the shows look and the aesthetics of everything.
Yeah, well, we've obviously got a fair bit of experience being there with Danny and Callum multiple times, and for me, it's that and Cage Warriors about as close to the UFC as I've dealt with promotions in terms of the production value, the way they look after the fighters and stuff like that. Like even the fight week, the way stuff runs, it's as close to the UFC as I've seen, other than Cage Warriors. I think we had a conversation with Mark Goddard before about Bama, how at one point Mark thought Bama was as close to the UFC, but they've obviously become Bellator now, and we were at Bellator with Callum, but it's just not the same. It still feels like Bama, but the EFC thing was pretty much like when I was there. It was Carnival City we were at, so you're in an arena. You're not in like a sports hall or something like that. It's like an arena that's set up for events, and it's hosted massive boxing fights before. The setup, with the cage and backstage and everything is pretty much as close to the UFC as you'll get outside of the UFC. And the TV, the numbers there is what Graeme was mentioning. Like there's guys there. We've got guys in for different parts of Africa who live in Scotland now. And they refer to MMA as EFC, like the same way a lot of the guys here refer to it as UFC.
It's bizarre, but it's very cool. It's very cool for us. It's true.
And then even like when I was over there with Danny, we were going to like chemists and stuff like that to get salt for salt baths, and Danny was getting recognised in the street and in the shopping malls and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? So we don't get that with our Cage Warriors guys. Like we've got champions at Cage Warriors many times over, and we can go to Liverpool or London for the fights and walk about and nobody knows who they are. But when we're over there with Danny, and this was before he was even the champion there, he was kind of coming up the ranks and title contention. He was getting recognised in the street and in the shops and stuff, to a point where we made a point of not leaving the hotel for a couple of days when he was getting a wee bit grumpy. Do you know what I mean? So that he could have his own space.
Danny, man. I miss that guy. He is awesome.
I've got to ask, how did the link come about then? How did Danny and such like end up on UFC? Where was the link there?
That's UFC or us?
No, so it's not UFC, EFC.
It was, I think John Kavanagh had Peter Queally over. And I'm sure it was Graeme had asked about bringing guys over, and John had passed on my details. So Graeme had contacted me asking for a featherweight, I think it was, or I think it may have been a featherweight and a heavyweight, but at the time we don't have a heavyweight. I think I actually said about Graeme Turner to go, but Graeme got back saying he was too experienced. He had 30 pro fights at the time. And then I went and asked Danny if they could drop from lightweight to featherweight. And I think at the time Danny was 4-1. And Danny's like, right, let's do it, and signed. And EFC was the best thing that's happened to Danny. Like, we were struggling to get him decent. We could have had him fighting absolute bums here on small shows, but he's went for fighting on, I think his maybe last fight was On Top, and then he's went from that to EFC, and he was so busy over 2 years. He was there every 12 weeks pretty much. I think he had 6 or 7 fights really quick against good opposition. Like his first opponent was Hans Bofer, who we knew about because one of our wrestling coaches had wrestled against him. So it was pretty much
I couldn't believe,
yeah. And then it just went to there. But the time there was excellent because what I seen it was the promotion was developing almost at the same rate as Danny. Danny was getting harder and harder fights, and the promotion was getting bigger and bigger. And then by the time he got to like the Boyd Allen and the Cabeza fights, this is elite level competition now. It was like their fights that could happen in the main card at any organisation in the world, and the skill levels was brilliant. But that was pretty much it, man. It was John, I think, had Peter Queally over to fight Cabeza, and I think Graeme had just inquired about who to bring over for the UK.
And it's funny you say that, James, because you look at Peter now, and not that I'm laying claim to it, but I think that Peter's trajectory through EFC really helped him. He went through a rough patch joining EFC, and obviously it was quite a cathartic experience. Him and Edgar going through what they went through. Then he was quite aligned with Connor, and then Connor got to where he is, and I think that it just opened up that door for him to walk through, and it was quite cool. But going back to kind of building a lot of the athletes, it's so funny because I think a lot of the European guys that we brought over had this expectation that they would be badly matched, like that there would be some kind of favoritism. And I think that, even the judges and the refs, sure, I mean, in any organization, you're going to get bad calls. But there's been a relatively good standard that's been kept up regardless of where the guys are from. And that's why I've had and been fortunate enough to have so many Europeans and guys from overseas come here, lay claim to the title, and then kind of have a segue straight into the UFC, which is, it's great for us. We want that. We want the UFC to wake up to, this is a great model. And it's take it as it is in me saying this, and it's not any dig or anything like that, but my focus now is solely on the African athletes to get that, because it's horrible to say. I mean, you've got a lot of African athletes in your gym, and I get inundated with calls from all over the world with guys who have African athletes that have to come back to South Africa or Africa to compete here in order to get into the UFC. And my priority is actually the guys that are here, because I want an African, like a true African champion going there and rattling the cages. But I know that, and this is my opinion, it doesn't make business sense for the UFC. The UFC might have 3 African champions at the moment. Amazing. I've been riding this train the whole time going, yeah, Israel, oh my God, we've got Usman, we've got, Ngannou, we've got these guys, amazing. But the problem is that the UFC doesn't see it as a big thing. They go, okay, where's the money at? Money's always going to be in either Europe or America. We need European champions, we need American champions, because those are the guys that are spending the cash. The African market isn't developed enough for us. They're still leaving it up to us. That's why we're kind of like still sitting here going, okay, we'll take that charge. Then we will be the ONE FC of Africa. We will get injected investment in this business and turn it into $100 million business and compete. And then it'll be a different story. And I'm talking on the greater scale of investment. We like talking the fighting side because I'm the matchmaker. But the reality is the one-uppers for every single one of our athletes is how much money they can earn, because it shouldn't be the right way just to go, oh, they treated us well. Guys should, I mean, that should be the standard. That should be like base level. You know, the fact that anybody gets treated shit and still fights and gets a little bit of money, it's crap. You know, there needs to be a payoff. I need to grow my career, Graeme. Okay, cool. I can't afford $50,000 or $5,000 a fight, but what I can afford is this. But what I will give you is I'll give you a global awareness. So you fight 3 or 4 times with me, and Mick Maynard will go, that guy's fucking good. I've seen him fighting, and he's fighting top-class guys. Yeah. You've got to have a trade-off in this whole thing, you know?
And you'll be able to speak to this as well, Graeme. Maybe out in Europe and places like that, maybe a bit ignorant to this, but just how deep is the talent pool in Africa at the moment?
You know what the funny thing is? It's I've got about a 60% of the guys that are currently signed to EFC that are African or Congolese. So there's a big Congolese movement. Nigeria, I haven't even opened up because we did in the beginning, and it kind of it fizzled out. And they've been growing internally. They've got their own events. The beauty is they see EFC as the go-to. Angola, you must know the jiu-jitsu market in Angola because their relationship with the Portuguese and Brazil. That's the thing is, and this sounds really shitty of me, but guys, have you seen the African talent physically? Francis Ngannou is he's not the missing link in terms of like fighting size. That happens in DRC and in Senegal all the time. Quick, fast, strong, highly paced guys that can throw down. It's just it's beneficial for the bigger promotions to not, or the UFCs to not look at Africa, because it's such a. Do you think they want to come to Congo and host an event? They're like, no, we've got the best thing in the world in Vegas. We make $1 billion here, or we got to spend $1 billion to go there. Let EFC do it. So they're kind of waiting for us to grow that market. Great. And to be fair, your question is, how deep is the talent pool? It is so deep. James is alluding to the fact that as our promotion was developing, you see what was happening is EFC came in at this market. We came from a television production background. So we always produced a really beautiful product, and we knew that the athletes weren't at that level. And year on year, we knew it would catch up. Year on year, we were bringing out great international athletes. Like Danny Henry raised the level of the guys he fought. You know, they felt, shit, I'm fighting a top-class Scottish international boy, comes from a great gym. James Doolan, there's respect. That's the way combat sports are. You're always chasing it. Now, our athletes are as good as the production of the promotion, which means we've got a deep talent pool. For a year, our guys have just been sitting, waiting, going, I think we have more people that rely on EFC than I think the UFC does. I think being a full-time UFC fighter is hard, or a Bellator fighter is hard. You've got to be something else. In this country, economically, when we pay them, they're getting more than they would have gotten in 6 months. So it's like it pays for them to sit around and wait for EFC to get reignited, because they've got so many brands online, sponsors online. There's somebody. They've developed an entire persona, and that persona is now selling them tickets, selling them opportunities. So, we just need to get back online, really, for them.
Yeah, and you just said there about fighters sitting around just waiting for things to happen. You obviously are normally very, very busy. How's the last year or so been for you personally? Terrible.
I've lost lots of people to the disease itself, people that are in my family. And financially, it's hit my company, my partners, the people that work with us, our crew, like a ton of bricks. The television industry has absolutely been decimated. The sports entertainment industry has absolutely been decimated. There's been a lot of floor crossing in terms of like boxers coming to us and our athletes going to boxing, just guys looking for activity, guys looking to put money on the table. And, in this country, unfortunately, the support I mean, we're a private company. If I had government funding, anytime money's come into our company, it's gone straight to our athletes. So, there's been no government funding for our athletes. Because MMA is still a fringe sport. It's not rugby. I think gymnastics got more support financially than MMA. So our guys really suffered. They really, really, really suffered. But the beauty is, and our pool is whittled down, horrible. But the guys that have stuck around are invested so wholeheartedly in the vision of our business. We've been doing this for 12 years. We've put family money in. We've put everything into this. This is everything. This is not like, cool. I hear the UFC investment story and I think, oh, that's amazing. If I had 100 million sitting in the bank to throw at something, great. What if you don't have 100 million? And what if you are on the zero bread line and you're still putting money in and still finding ways to keep going? That's what EFC is for us and our partners. It's something that will be huge and in terms of finance, and we're just gonna keep going until that happens, so that we can pay our athletes lots of money, and then we're all smiling. And there were those days when we were paying out huge purses, but our product is so good and so loved by the athletes that compete in it. They know that it's got their best interest at heart. It is a product that they are invested in,
And presumably now, looking forward, you're excited by the future and getting things back and everything rolling and moving.
Yeah. So where we are is, as a business, we've looked at the models that are out there at the moment. ONE FC has raised $400 million and they're $1 billion valuation. UFC is a $7 billion valuation. Numbers don't lie. America's got a big market in terms of how much people spend on sport. We believe we've got the best product in Africa. We have 1.3 billion people to access. We have the biggest sports brand in Africa. And we built up this beautiful thing. And COVID's hit us all hard. And we just need to reignite the fires. And we're right there, which is we've looked at a lot of investment models. And for us, we found a fractional investing model where where athletes are actually going to be the first people to receive. And I've never seen, and we've done our research because we keep on looking for other businesses that are doing this, which is we're taking EFC, we're taking 20% of it, we're putting it in a special purpose vehicle. And it's going to be a fractional investment opportunity that athletes are equity shareholders in our business. So you'll get cash to compete, plus you'll get bonuses of equity in our business to compete. Because that's what we've got. Guys have stuck around. There's guys in our business that maybe won't fight for us, that'll still get equity because of where the journey that they've come with us. And I think I'm so excited about it because I know it's something that, people hold on to their business, it's their baby. Like we've had this thing for 12 years. I'm a partner in this business. It's everything to me. It's my little baby. And now I'm going to give equity away. But I'm giving equity away to people who hold the flag higher than I could ever hold it, actually. Because you look at guys like Drickus. He goes to the UFC. That guy calls me 2-3 times a week. We talk about all of his fights that he's going to get. I'm in his corner. He's in my corner. He wants EFC to be the biggest thing in Africa because if we're the biggest thing, he came from the biggest thing into the UFC and he kicked ass and took names, and now he's the champion. And I think that's where we are right now is our athletes are going to participate first, and then we're going to open up to investors to be able to invest in our business, which is, it's going to be revolutionary. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah, it's exciting as well, and especially getting the athletes in and part of the business. It just means everybody wants things to succeed because everybody benefits.
100%. You phone a guy and you go, listen, what do you want most? Graeme, I just want to fight. Okay, well, you know what I want most? I want you to fight. So we have an understanding. How do we make that work for each other? Why don't you be my partner in this business? And you fight, you get in there, you kick ass, take names. I'll still give you cash to pay for your camp and, get things going. But if we all make money and this thing turns into a monster, we all profit.
Yeah.
It's a win-win for all of us. And we've gone in with this, like, in the beginning, like treading on eggshells, trying to work through the finances and trying to work through it. And now we're at the stage where we're about to open it up to everybody. The athletes are going to get their shares. And it's like, it's a great feeling. It's a great feeling that when I sit at a weigh-in brief and I talk to all the guys, I'm talking to people that are there because they actually really want to be there, you know, and we're getting back, you know, James, the old kind of stalwarts in the organization, like Martin van Staden and Boyd Allen, all these guys are coming back because they look at the value and they go, you know, no one's ever offered me equity in a business.
Yeah, and you mentioned a name there, but you mentioned a name there, Boyd Allen. He's returning. Are you excited to see Boyd coming back over to MMA?
I'm so excited. I'm so excited to see him back in MMA. I think, you know, I had Iga Cabeza on the line with me 2 days ago, and he was quite upset. He was like, you know, you've given Boyd this opportunity, and I really wanted to fight because Iga's been sitting off for 2 years. 1 year for COVID, and a year he kind of took a sabbatical. So it's 2 years that he hasn't been in action. He gave me a lot of shit for it, and I said, listen, bud, you know, just look at the upside. We all know that EFC is the platform that's going to take all of our careers. You know, whatever you want from this, you make the most of it. If you put in 10% into the business, you'll get 10% out. If you put 100% in, you get 100% out. If you want to be the champion and go to the UFC, well, there's the fucking platform. It's right in front of you. I need to do nothing except for put you in fights. You need to win them and make it so undeniable that you're the champion. And then when you're the champion, sit there and go, hey, Sean Shelby, stop sleeping. You know, I'm here. So I think I said, there's the platform. I'm creating the talent for you. I'm pulling the guys back in, the guys like Boyd. And they're the guys that you want to fight because it's going to be an incredible experience for an Iga and a Boyd to face off. I mean, James, you know them both. You know what that can mean for that former partners, the whole story. And they'd be willing to fight, which is even more amazing. So, you know, I'm happy to have Boyd back. I also know that in fight sports, and I could be wrong here, but in fight sports, there's something that's happened that's discombobulated the whole, what we're living in, the three of us are in. We love the sport, but boxing, MMA, it's almost like everybody that was a champion in 2019 and undefeated is now defeated, flaws. It's like it's like everybody's been psychologically tested, you know?
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of people are like, oh, Bruno, what's Bruno going to offer? And Bruno, I've moved to Cape Town and he actually trains at the gym down the road from me. And I've been seeing him almost every single day, looking at this guy going, holy shit. He's competed at middleweight, light heavyweight. He's fought Drickus twice. He took Drickus, he almost beat Drickus. It was an incredible fight. And now he's going to be fighting Boyd. Boyd's never competed at lightweight successfully. He's only ever competed at featherweight. It's a really good fight. And the state of the world of fighting, it makes it even more competitive. So it's like every matchup you put on, pre-COVID, you go, I don't know what, it's a bit of a strange one. Now, post-COVID, I'm like, I've been training for a year. I don't know what the fuck he's been up to. He could have been going crazy for a year and the other guy could be sleeping, you know?
It definitely opens out. James, you mentioned a fight there, a potential fight there, Graeme. What do you think, James? Do you fancy that one? Cabeza Allen? That would be fun. The build-up would be interesting as well.
The narrative is already written for it. Like their former teammates, they are out with Drickus. They're probably the best two fighters that's ever been in EFC, I think.
I agree.
From South Africa. There's a stylistic thing.
In there like it.
From style-wise, they couldn't be much different. Boyd's a super slick movement, good punching, excellent, dangerous off his back. Then you've got this absolute freak athlete in Cabeza, who's probably the fastest guy I've seen. Excellent wrestler, punches super hard. It's an interesting fight, man, and like I said, the narrative's already written with it. The former teammates, they want to fight each other. They're chalk and cheese. Like Boyd is the nicest guy I've ever met. He's such a cool guy.
Dude, I've been trying to do a countdown show with Boyd, James, and like I was talking to my creative team and we're like, okay, So Bruno's this, and then Boyd's this. And it was just like the end state was like, whatever you expect Boyd to say, don't. He's going to be very nice, cordial, and he's just a gentleman. That's the way.
Yeah.
You're never going to get he's never going to shit talk anybody. And he doesn't even do it. A lot of athletes are like that on TV, where they like come across as these gentlemen, and then in the boardroom with me, they're like, that guy's a dickhead. He must lose. And I go, geez, why can't you be that on the TV? Oh, no, let's be a professional. Boyd is the whole way through.
Yeah, he's the exact same. And we spoke to him off air before the interview, and just the same guy. There's no airs or graces. He's just a really, really nice guy. We managed to get a smile out of him and a laugh out of him. We spoke about Callum Murray triangling himself. That gave us a laugh. But he's a really nice guy.
I think Callum would have done so much better in the promotion if he'd had a little bit more runway with us. I think he got a Boyd fight too early. Yep. I would have liked to see him two fights and then a Boyd, 2 more fights and then a Boyd, because he's extremely talented. That's the reality, and it's just bad matchmaking from my part, to be honest.
I've never heard a matchmaker say that before.
No, well, I mean, it's funny. I did one amateur fight as a boxer when I was a kid. And I was 15 or 16 or whatever, and I went against this young kid. Well, he was 21, he was a man, and he beat the living shit out of me. And because in amateurs, it was at my boxing club, they called it a draw. So they both put our hands up, and I remember my brother screaming from the corner in the second round, "Fight Irish!" I don't know what that meant, because my mother's Irish, and I don't know whether maybe that dirty boxing or must do something, lace him or something. I don't know.
Grab a bottle.
Yeah, you bastard. Yeah. Anyway, so the point is that afterwards, my dad said to me, that's just bad matchmaking, and it can really fuck with someone's career. So I try not to do it, but to be fair, you just don't know what you're getting sometimes. And I know that the quality out of high level is always going to be good. But it's not his skill set. It's just the feel. EFC is deceivingly massive. It's a big field promotion. If you want to wet your toes to get to UFC, it's perfect. We've got everything. We've got the athletes, the production, everything. So it's like, I just would have liked to see Callum, because I saw him in the actual gym training, and I know gym training is nothing like fight training, and I was just like, holy shit. I was like, this kid he's slick, his movements, he comes from that Kyokushin karate style, like very open stance, and his movements quick and swift. Yeah, I enjoyed him. Yeah.
Nasty ground game as well, obviously.
Yeah, for sure. And he's strong. He's a physical specimen,
James, so, you kind of sighed and nodded there when Graeme said about Callum, maybe another 2 fights before Boyd. I'm assuming that was in agreement there.
Callum's one of the guys at featherweight. If somebody phones up and says, "You want Max Holloway tomorrow?" Callum will be like, "Aye." He doesn't think. He doesn't. Do you know what I mean? He doesn't think further down the line. He just wants his run at EFC was Boyd, then Pierre Bofa, and then Cabeza. Do you know what I mean? It's just like fucking hell. But
the top. That's it.
Good, excellent guys, and Callum's win on ACB's win on Bellator and stuff like that, and then obviously he's went over to EFC and he's had the good guys, but he loved it there. And we knew those fights were going to be risky, but the thing is, Callum's not like a 21-year-old prospect. He's got a full-time job. He makes a good living. I think he's in his early 30s. Do you know what I mean? So I don't even think getting to the UFC is not a goal for Callum. I think he just wants to fight. If you offer him the hardest fights, he's going to take them. That's what he's done, obviously.
I re-signed Callum with the intention prior COVID, like just coming out of COVID, that things would be okay and we could bring him out. So I think, what we're looking at is, we're not saying no to internationals. I'd rather work with international guys that I've got, like Callum and those guys, or reignite and go, hey, we've got to fight for you. But it's just for the next couple of months while we are just getting back onto the stage. I'm going to focus heavily on the African talent here. Get that right. Also, the pools are dictated by the guys here. So, I mean, I get great applications. When I say exceptional applications, they blow my mind. But, I don't have the depth in the pools. Like a strawweight, I had a female strawweight application the other day, and I was like, holy shit. It's funny. Israel Adesanya was an application to EFC for our TF1 show. No jokes. So we get this application, and I'm like, oh my God, like this looks awesome. He wasn't in the UFC, obviously, and I think he was like 6-0 at the time, and he's in his Muay Thai shorts, those black Muay Thai shorts, big, like machine-looking guy. And I said, I emailed back saying, sorry, he's too experienced. I'd love to do it. And I took a shot, and we were back and forth. Eugene was like, listen, he needs the opportunity. Put him in there. You'll smoke everybody. I said, that's the problem. He's going to come in and just smoke everybody. And he's going to be a sure favorite. And it's a reality show where, you want to build guys into that position. Excuse me. And then we'd sent over contracts. I thought, let's just take a dip at this guy. He's African. The Nigerian element is great. And boom, signed by the UFC. And now he's like the biggest thing since sliced bread. And I'm like, shit. I can imagine he'd come through UFC.
Such is life, though. Great. I wanted to jump on something you said a moment ago, Graeme, and actually bring you in this, James, because you've seen it firsthand. Is that something you've seen with a lot of European fighters that come over to the show? They come over expecting one thing, and then it's like, bam, holy fuck. This is a lot bigger than I expected.
Yeah, so just from my perspective, I think we try and set a good standard with them and not try and treat the local guys any different, because obviously when somebody has gotten in a plane and sat in a plane for 16 hours to get to you, him and his coach, to fight, you want to make sure that they're comfortable and that they've had a good experience. So nobody's ever been treated badly, but I must say, there's something in the fact that they've committed to come out here, because it's still, people are green to the idea of Africa. You come from Europe. If you've never been here, you South Africa, you might as well be, landing in the desert. You have no expectations. You kind of Google about it. You kind of know somebody who's been there. Cape Town's beautiful. Then you land in Johannesburg. You don't know what's going on. I can imagine it's quite an experience already, just arriving in Africa. So then, I'm not taking away from the magnitude of the event, but then to add a world-class event on top of that, I think you're like, holy shit, this is cool. Yeah. It's like a fun experience. And I think, I'm speaking out of turn because I'm blowing smoke up my crew's butt, but I really think the people that we have in our organization, in our crew, are just they're just really world-class good people. Everybody will talk to you. Everybody's got a relationship with you, from the marketing guys to the athlete coordinators, to myself, to Cairo. Nobody's above. We're all next to you. We're all trying to get this thing going. We all believe in this product. And you've flown over here to be a part of it, and you're a part of it. You're not like an outsider coming to challenge the African champion,
Yeah, just and James, you would have experienced that the first time you went out. I think your first fight though on the way out as a Scotsman is the sun and the heat.
I am
especially Danny Henry, who is the whitest.
Yeah.
This is Danny. He's fucking white.
I had some notions of South Africa pretty much for Lethal Weapon 2, I think. So I was like, fuck it. This is what's going to be like, or the kind of news stories about the carjackings and stuff like that. And so I went with an open mind, to be honest, but I was like, if any cunt tries to rob me, there's going to be problems.
Bisping was robbed here. I just want to tell you, Bisping was robbed here.
He was robbed. I remember that story, actually.
And the thing is, I've moved to Cape Town, and I mean, if you Google anything about Cape Town, it'll straight up say one of the most dangerous cities in the world. I mean, it's just not true. It's just not true. You know?
See, it just shows how we have all these images. I remember the carjacking thing was a thing. I think I was watching a documentary on it and how people were electrifying their car doors and all that stuff. Obviously bullshit. Well, I think it is anyway, but it just shows how the image you have in your head and the reality can be.
100%.
Sorry, on you go.
And I was going to segue into something completely irrelevant. I was going to say we could actually do shows in our PI. We could do a show in our PI that looks like it's in Scotland, in Edinburgh. You know what I mean? We could just fly out a whole lot of Scottish athletes and they can fuck each other up. We could say that it's from Edinburgh and send it back to a Scottish production house. Seriously.
To be fair, Graeme, see if I take my camera out in Glasgow or Edinburgh of a weekend when things normalise, I'll send you the footage. You won't even need to edit it. It'll be completely uncut.
Good man. I like it.
I just want to finish up on this, Graeme. What I wanted to know is how did you get into MMA? Then obviously into promoting matchmaking, because presumably when you're younger, it's probably not the best business idea to move into it, but you're here nonetheless.
It wasn't. Well, I think if I had to do it again, I'd probably do it. Even though in the hardest times I've said this is the shittest sport ever, and why am I doing this? And my family is suffering, and everybody's, going through a whole hard time. But it's what I want to do, and I never really. Maybe COVID brought that out of me. It's like if I've stuck through this, and I believe in this business, so I could have done a million other things during COVID, but I stuck around for EFC. Yes, I'm a partner in it, but there comes a cut of time when you're like, okay, cool, I'll go do something else. But I just believe in this thing. Yeah. It's in the hearts and minds of everybody. So, and that's kind of where the reason I'm starting off for that is that's why the reason it's so successful is that's where it's come from. Yeah. So it's come from, I was in banking. And even before that, I did judo as a kid, I did boxing as a kid, and I did all the things, and I love martial arts, and my dad always pushed me to do it. He was in the All England Games for judo. He represented Leicester. So I've always had that martial arts background or want to do it. My two older brothers who are 10 and 12 years older than me hated boxing. They ran out of the boxing gym, thought it was the worst smelling place on the planet. And I was enamored with it. I was like, this is where I belong. Boxed as an amateur. Wasn't really good. Wasn't really bad. Just enjoyed it. And did it for ages. Went into banking. And my manager at the time, who later became one of my best friends, said to me, let's start Muay Thai. And I went to go and train Muay Thai, which wasn't really Muay Thai. It was just a big dude teaching us kickboxing. But I thought, this is flipping awesome. And, then you're watching all sorts of things like Street Fighter and all these things that kind of, I'm doing Muay Thai, this is who I am. Oh, yeah, and still with the boxing background, still loved the boxing side, dabbled. And the real change happened for me actually when Cairo, who we were friends at the time, he met Richard Kwan. And Richard is in a coffee shop, and he was wearing like an MMA style shirt and a jersey. And Cairo had at that stage no clue about the MMA culture. And he told me about it, and I was like, no, it's an MMA thing, Connected with Richard, started training with him. I think Cairo was his first student, I was his second student. And that's how we built. I literally started helping him train people at Muay Thai, because that's what I love doing. Went to train in Muay Thai. In Thailand with Richard and Norman and Darren, managed a few athletes, was still working in banking at an investment bank. And then I had a tragedy in my family, and I was like, I want to do something different. Went to Thailand with Richard, had a great time there, and decided this is what I want to do. And Cairo was in the sports entertainment business, They owned a couple of expos, and they were in broadcast and things like that. And he was always saying, we're going to start the UFC of Africa. So one day I was training him, and he said, this is what we're going to do, me and my brothers. And I was like, I'll resign. I don't care. I want to do this. And the only experience I had was I was working with a bit of athletes and training them. Training, I mean, like rudimentary Muay Thai stuff. I wasn't blowing anyone's hair back. And I started matching fights based on what I liked. And it was so raw then that, I was the first matchmaker in this country in MMA that was doing it professionally because I was doing it full time. And I'm the only matchmaker in the continent that does it full time. And I've got 12 years experience now, and I've just learned as I've gone, really.
Yeah.
And I've made a lot of mistakes. Fuck, if I've had some of the most horrific matchups, but the thing is, I'm not shy to say it, and the reality is it was for everything I've done has been for the betterment of the business. I've always wanted the business to be great, and there's nothing greater than good fights. And I tried to really blow my load, as it were, and throw all the best fights on the one fight card. And I had to start evening that out. And then certain divisions changed. I mean, you know what it's like. The MMA business it's bipolar, There's so many things going on.
And with matchmaking, unfortunately, there's no course or no school you can go to learn it. You kind of need to learn. But one thing as a matchmaker as well, though, what's that feeling like when you make a fight and you've got this fight built up in your head? You think, right, this is going to be this, it's going to be amazing, and the fight outdoes your expectations. How good a feeling is that?
It's funny. It's like I think matchmaking actually is now down to the prelims. I think myself, Sean, Jude, I think the guys literally have a job when they're matching prelim fight cards, because the headliners are preordained. They've gotten there by their own merit. It's the two guys that everybody wants to see, not necessarily the guys that we should be watching. It's not a tournament. It's Chael Sonnen is going to fight Anderson Silva, even though he's coming off losses and he's not even in that weight category and he hasn't fought in 2 years. But it's the fight to make. So what the fight to make is. The prelims, and I say that, is matchmaking as an art or something that needs to be done. It isn't an algorithm. It's not a thing. Is you look at a fight card and you go, fuck, who's going to be incredible to watch? And that the prelims are going to go out there and just about put their entire lives into that hexagon to make sure that they are like seen on the world stage, and then they featured on the main card next time, and that they get that bonus, and that they can turn around to you and go, I'm here, I've arrived, So for me, it's the most incredible feeling. And I think looking back now, and it's been quite cathartic in that way, is that a lot of the main cards now, the Boyd Allens, the Martin van Stadens, they are grateful. And I'm not saying I need my fucking balls licked for putting guys on fight cards. But what is so nice is there's a relationship where, like, I'm so happy that I found them and they found me, and that they are now who they are. That Adrikas is now where he is. And I remember his first fights, and I see that in the younger guys when we put the fights together. I'm like, that guy could be the next that could be the guy.
Yeah, that's it. And James, you've turned your hand to matchmaking in the past. How enjoyable was that experience for you?
It's pretty stressful, man, to be honest. But it wasn't obviously at the same level that Graeme was doing it, but it is a complete art form. I think if you're doing it right, what Graeme's knocked on the head there with the prelims, you're putting these matches together, and you're maybe thinking 2 or 3 fights down the line for some of these guys. How can I build them? How can I build them? I need to test them. I can't just feed them bums, but he needs to get a gradual increase of tests. And then if it comes through it, another word that you used earlier, it's like the Thanos thing. You have to become inevitable, really. You have to, if you want to get to the main event, and then you want to win the title and defend it for multiple defences and get to the UFC, you have to go out and put your stamp on it. But all that work starts in the prelims. It starts with your first pro fight and your second and your third. And it's not just if you do it right, it's not a fluke. There's a lot to be took for boxing, I think, about how they bring fighters on. there's some bad points with boxing as well, where a lot of them duck each other and stuff. And you see in UFC, like, a lot of young prospects will get matched together at some point, and it almost kills one of them to get the other one to go into bigger things. So there is a definite art form to it, and when it's done right, it's perfect. And
isn't it funny that boxing and MMA are so diametrically opposed in terms of matchmaking and business models? That the crossover is now, like, quite funny. That a lot of athletes, like, they're going on about Jake Paul and this matchup and what's happened there, and the earnings and the whole story, and it always does revolve around how much people can earn. And I say, well, okay, so Ben Askren, basically, that's a once-off. So he's earned $650,000 or $500,000 for a once-off. There's no career building there. A lot of guys don't understand that I'm not in the business of sideshows. In Japan, they had that whole period piece where they were, like, just putting the biggest dudes that they could find together, until they ran out of big dudes, and then they ran out of shows, and they didn't have an event. You know, when we take a guy on who's a lightweight, who's got 2 fights and he's 2-0, and he's excited about his life, you know, do you want to create a spectacle out of him and make him shit the bed when he walks out there? No, you want to build him up slowly until he becomes even a more stable star, because it is so crap. And what we never discuss as matchmakers and promoters is when the fairy tale ends. So when you stop fighting, when you go from being, and there's guys I know who went from being athletes, studying while they did this, became huge stars. Girls love them. They're earning money. They've got sponsorship. They're living a life of an athlete. They're on TV all the time. It's great. They're getting fussed over socially, and then all of a sudden they resign, they stop fighting, and then they become, who are they? To them, they're nobody, you know. And that's the shit thing is, we don't ever look at, like, the end result. You've got to really look after these guys. I'm not being the Mother Teresa, the bleeding heart here. I'm just saying there is an art in caring, and you only get your just rewards later. There's a lot of guys that have gone off to the UFC or gone off to do other things and left us with bad taste in their mouths because we weren't able to offer them this huge, grandiose financial remuneration that they needed, only to come back later and go, you guys are awesome.
Yeah.
Because we gave a shit. Like, we didn't have the money, but we gave a shit. And we still give a shit, you know? So there's many levels to it. Putting good fights together, having good relationships, and what I'm hampering on is the foundation. The relationships. If you don't have relationships with your athletes and good relationships with the athletes, their grannies will be whispering in their ears that I'm screwing them over and the promotion shit, and you must go do something else with your life, and Graeme needs to pay you more and this and that. Like, and you bring them back to reality and you're like, okay, so this is how the business works. You need to fight. This is you're only 2-0. When you get here, you'll be here.
Yeah, it's it's not the easiest business you've chosen to be in, Graeme, I'll be honest with you.
But it's fun. It's very, very fun.
That's it. Well, listen, mate, we won't keep you much longer. It's been really good getting you on and chatting to you, mate. We really, really appreciate your time.
I mustn't drink red wine before I talk to you guys because I just babble on. Cairo tells me I just absolutely waffle on about absolute rubbish. So I hope I've made a little bit of sense about something tonight.
No, I haven't
given James at least any airtime here, but he's always on the show, so I have to steal some of his thunder. Eh?
James is still thinking about that Callum matchup. That's what
Wheels are turning.
Wheels are turning.
I love it.
But brilliant. Listen, Graeme, we'll let you go on that, mate. And cheers for coming on the show and chatting to us, mate. It's been a pleasure.
Absolute pleasure. And just one last thing, man. I really, really hope to see lots of guys from High Level and from Scotland come out because you guys throw down hard, eh?
Yeah,
you come out and you throw down, and like I got a lot of respect for what you guys have done out there. I think it's been incredible.
There's definitely some guys here, James, eh?
Mark Ewan is
I'm following him on Instagram. I'm getting there slowly. I'm whetting my appetite for him. I'm just trying to work it out. I've got him in my sights. Trust me.
Yeah, I know, man. I know. I think we probably can't travel there for a few months anyway. So once you get up and get your next 2 or 3 months, your next 2 or 3 shows on, we'll be ready to go.
I'll put you up at a hotel for free, buddy. You can stay here. You can come live in Cape Town near me. You can train me.
Look, don't tempt me, man.
No dogs or anything, James. You won't be able to take them.
You'll go back with a tan. It'll be amazing.
He's Scottish. He'll go back red.
Bump the shit.
Well, listen, lads. Thanks very much. Thanks for noticing, Graeme. We appreciate it, man. It's been a pleasure speaking to you, mate.
Anytime.
Thank you.
Cheers,
Thank you.